absolute value is, it just means it's only going to return the number without the sign. So for example, the absolute value of positive 5 is 5, right? Which is the same thing. Positive 5 and 5 are the same. But the absolute value of negative 5 is also 5, right? So it removes that negative. Okay, we're only looking at the numeric value. We're not looking at the sign. Okay. Moving on to question number 2 here. It says name 2 mutable types and 3 immutable types. Right. So hopefully you guys remember the lesson on mutability from last time. We said that lists and dictionaries are mutable, and strings, ints, floats, and bools are immutable. Okay, so that's an extra type for you right there. Question number 3 says, if a variable isn't defined inside a function, but is defined outside the function, can we still access the value from inside the function? And of course, the answer to that is yes, we can, because the variable outside of the function is globally scoped, meaning any function can access that value in the variable. Question 4. Question 4 says, state what the following program will print in the correct order. Right, so this is another scoping question. So let's break this down together. Zoom in. Right, so here we have 2 variables defined. Right off the bat, we have x is equal to 300 and y is equal to 500. Okay, and then we have a function definition called my function. It takes in a single argument x, and it goes on to say that x is equal to x plus 200. Okay, so that's interesting. It says x is equal to x plus 200, y is equal to 600. The function then is going to print out the value of x, and then it's going to print out the value of y. Okay, and then on this line here, we actually execute the function. So that means it's going to actually run this code. Right? It wasn't running before. The function does not run until we call the function, which we have on this line here. And then next after that, we print x and print y. Okay, so there's a few concepts in play here. We have the concept of scopes, and we also have the concept of mutability. Okay, so the first few lines, right, this is all just setting up our program to run, but our program only starts doing something from when we run the function. Okay, so when the function runs, right, as you can see, we pass in x, and obviously the x inside the function is locally scoped, meaning only the function can access the x inside the function. So when we pass in x for this function here, when we pass as an argument, it's going to use the globally scoped value of 300, right? So we're calling the my function with an argument of 300. So we come here and we say that x is equal to x, which we know is 300 plus 200. So x will be 500, and then y will be 600. Now, there is a y defined here too, of 500, but we're not going to refer to that one when we print y inside the function. Okay, and hopefully you guys remember that is because when it comes to functions, we look at the local scope before the global scope, right? Every function has its own local scope. So this function's local scope says y is equal to 600. Okay, if it didn't have this y is equal to 600 here, then we would look in the global scope and we would find this y, which is equal to 500. But it turns out this function does have y is equal to 600. So when we print x, we will print 500. When we print y, we will print 600. That is the end of the function. The function is now done executing. We now go to the next line, which prints out x. Okay, now, like I said before, values and statements outside of a function does not have access to that function's local scope. So the value of x and y here only apply in this function. When I print x here, it's going to look at the global scope. Okay. Moreover, right, you might be confused and thinking, okay, well, we clearly passed x into this function over here, and the function is adding 200 to x, making it 500. So when we print x here, will it be 500? It will not, right? Because remember, x is an integer and integers are immutable. And we said immutable types cannot have their value changed by a function. If I did want to change by a function, what I would have to do is I would have to have this function return the value of x, and then I would have to write here x is equal to my func x. And that would make x equal to 500. But because I didn't do that, when I print x here, it's going to be 300. And when I print y here, it's going to be the globally scoped y here, 500. So what we're going to print is this x first, which is going to be 500. Then this y, 600. Then we're going to print this x using this print statement, which will give us 300. And then we will print this y using this print statement, which will give us 500. Okay, so the final answer is 500, 600, 300, 500. Now, I know that was a little confusing. Does anyone have any questions, any doubts? Does anyone want me to go through that example again?